Oxidative stress is a major mechanism that can impair both egg and sperm quality, including DNA integrity, mitochondrial function, and early embryo development. So today, I want to explain how this works. I find it really fascinating how sperm and eggs are particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress because they are sensitive in different ways. So if you're unfamiliar with this term, let me explain what it is, and then we'll get into the specifics of how sperm and eggs are impacted. You may be familiar with the term antioxidant. Those are good, right? Because they quench oxidants. So when people say eat a lot of foods with antioxidants, this is the reason. They're helpful in reducing oxidative stress or reactive oxygen species. So this is how it works. You eat food, you breathe in oxygen, you mash them together, you put them through the mitochondria, which makes ATP. That's our energy. So you get energy, and as a byproduct, you get CO2 and you get oxidants or free radicals or reactive oxygen species. There's a few different words for it, a few different names. This process is called cellular respiration. So free radicals or reactive oxygen species, or ROS for short, I'll probably say that moving forward because it's a lot easier, are a normal outcome of metabolism, and they do have important physiological functions, but when we have too much, that's when it becomes problematic. So ROS, or free radicals, are important for inflammatory functions in our body, protecting us from pathogens, so things that cause sickness, virus and bacteria and whatnot. They are important and necessary in the process of reproduction as well, like sperm capacitation and signaling. They're even necessary for normal egg maturation, ovulation, fertilization. So again, it's not all ROS are bad. The problem is when ROS overwhelms the body's antioxidant defenses, then that can cause cell damage. And I'll explain why in a minute. But when we have too many reactive oxygen species, or ROS, or free radicals, and not enough antioxidants to balance them, that results in what we call oxidative stress. So this is a problem for egg and sperm and embryo development, and let me explain why. ROS are, as defined by the National Cancer Institute, a type of unstable molecule that contains oxygen and easily reacts with other molecules in a cell. A buildup of reactive oxygen species in cells may cause damage to DNA, RNA, and proteins, and may cause cell death. So from an egg and sperm perspective, that doesn't sound great. Damage to DNA and proteins and cell death. Free radicals, or ROS, they're unstable molecules that steal from other cells to make them stable. So an antioxidant is any substance that can prevent, reduce, or repair reactive oxygen species-induced damage. They quench or neutralize the ROS by donating an electron. That stabilizes it and stops it from damaging cell structures. So that's what I think of when I think of too many free radicals or ROS. They damage cells and can lead to cell death. And remember, egg and sperm are simply that. They're cells. So they get damaged when there are too many ROS and resultant oxidative stress. To me, that makes sense, that cell damage will result in poorer egg and sperm quality and embryo quality. Research has also associated oxidative stress with several reproductive conditions like PCOS, endometriosis, premature ovarian insufficiency, and recurrent pregnancy loss. I keep catching myself saying PCOS instead of PMOS because they changed the name, rightfully so. But you get the point. Research also associates oxidative stress on the male side with impaired male fertility outcomes like reduced sperm motility, abnormal morphology, DNA damage, low testosterone levels, and conditions like varicocele. And studies show increased ROS levels have been detected in 20 to 45% of semen samples of infertile patients. So let's talk more specifically about how this impacts egg and sperm. These cells are both vulnerable to oxidative stress, but in different ways. Eggs are sensitive because their energy systems and chromosome division are delicate, while sperm are sensitive because their membranes and DNA are easy to damage, and they have limited repair capacity. I'm going to talk about sperm first, and there are quite a few reasons that they are more sensitive to oxidative stress, and it really comes down to their structure and how they are made. First, sperm have minimal antioxidant defense because sperm cells have very little cytoplasm, and that's where most antioxidant enzymes are found in other cells. So this means they can't neutralize free radicals as effectively, and they rely heavily on external antioxidants from semen or the body for protection. Sperm also have a high polyunsaturated fatty acid or PUFA content. The cell membrane is very rich in these polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are lipids, and they're important for flexibility and motility. But because of this cell membrane makeup, the double bonds in their fatty acid chains are more unstable and reactive areas where free radicals can easily steal electrons and damage. So this cell membrane makeup is sensitive to the process called lipid peroxidation. And once these fats get oxidized, the membrane becomes stiff or dysfunctional, which can affect sperm's ability to swim and to fertilize an egg. Sperm DNA is also poorly protected. Unlike other cells, sperm DNA is tightly packed but with limited DNA repair mechanisms. So if reactive oxygen species cause breaks or mutations, the sperm can't repair the damage efficiently, which can lead to DNA fragmentation. And that affects fertilization, embryo quality, and increases miscarriage risk. DNA fragmentation is something sometimes doctors will check on a sperm analysis, but it's not in a baseline sperm analysis typically. So the bottom line, sperm have fragile membranes and minimal internal protection. This makes them especially sensitive to inflammation, toxins, and oxidative stress. So when I have male clients who maybe have a higher exposure to environmental toxins and inflammation, then I know we need to support their antioxidants and reduce other drivers, identify and reduce other drivers of inflammation and oxidative stress that we can find. I say this because I say men because men are more likely to work in conditions with environmental toxin exposure, like with fumes, solvents, heat, all these things that can increase oxidative stress and impact sperm quality. Things like firefighting, farming, welding, construction, painting, plastics, mechanics. Of course, women can have these exposures too, but it's more common in men, at least in my experience. This is why we pay attention to occupation, because it can impact your health. And then when it comes to eggs and oxidative stress, eggs rely heavily on healthy mitochondria for energy, which I have another video on. I'll leave in the caption if you want to learn more. This is so important. Human eggs are among the most mitochondria-rich cells in the body, with up to 100,000 or more mitochondria per egg. That's thousands of times more than the amounts found in sperm, which is 50 to 75. I mean, it's a huge difference. And somatic cells, which are other cells besides reproductive cells, have around 2,000 mitochondria. So to me, this makes so much sense because mitochondria supply the ATP or cellular energy, and that's needed for egg maturation, fertilization, embryo development. I mean, just thinking about egg development, that requires a lot of energy. This is a very energy dependent process. Think about growing a brand new human from scratch. That requires a lot of energy. But here's the interesting part. The very system eggs depend on for energy also naturally creates ROS, or free radicals, as a byproduct of energy production. So during cellular respiration, the process where mitochondria make ATP that I explained in the beginning of this video, remember during this process, some free radical production is normal. The problem happens when mitochondrial function becomes stressed or dysfunctional, and this can happen from a lot of things: aging, inflammation, insulin resistance, obesity, environmental toxins, even poor sleep, chronic stress, chronic infections. When that happens, mitochondria can start producing excess reactive oxygen species, creating a kind of self-damage loop where impaired mitochondria generate even more oxidative stress. Notice how a lot of the things I mentioned have a chronic nature to them. When I say poor sleep, every now and then it's not a deal breaker, but if you regularly don't get good sleep, that's a problem. Obesity is something that is a chronic problem and creates consistent inflammation. Insulin resistance, also not something that happens over short term because it's a lifestyle and environment result. And then I said chronic stress and chronic infections because, again, some ROS production is normal and necessary, But for example, with something like a chronic infection, the immune system produces reactive oxygen species as a part of its defense response. That's normal in the short term and necessary. But when it becomes chronic, ROS production stays elevated and it can start damaging healthy tissues too. Little side tangent there, but back to eggs and mitochondria. Unlike sperm, which are constantly being produced, women are for the most part born with all of their eggs. There is some newer emerging research looking at possible ovarian stem cells and regenerative potential within the ovary, but for the most part, women are born with a finite number of eggs, and these eggs are exposed to inflammation, toxins, blood sugar dysregulation, stress, oxidative stress over time. And that cumulative exposure can contribute to oxidative damage and declining egg quality with age. Research shows that as eggs age, they become less resilient to oxidative stress and less capable of repairing cellular damage. Aging oocytes or eggs become less capable of scavenging ROS, repairing DNA damage, and clearing damaged proteins. So not only is ROS increasing with age, but the egg's ability to protect itself also declines. Eggs also contain a lot of lipids or fats, and while they're not as rich in those PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids that I mentioned are rich in sperm cell membranes, it's not characteristic of eggs, but they are rich in lipids that can be vulnerable to oxidative damage as well. And then the egg chromosome spindle system is also very delicate. So excess ROS can interfere with proper chromosome division, egg maturation, and early embryo development. So in simpler terms, oxidative stress can damage the mitochondria, DNA, membranes, and cellular machinery needed for healthy egg quality and development, which is why supporting mitochondrial health and reducing oxidative stress becomes increasingly important, especially as women age. And this is why I love photobiomodulation or cold laser therapy as a part of supporting fertility. Some of the emerging research is especially interesting in reproductive aging because photobiomodulation appears to support mitochondrial function and help reduce oxidative stress, along with many other benefits. I've been using it in practice for about 5 years now and getting great results. Make sure you're subscribed for my next video on cold laser therapy, where I'll dive into that more and how it can be supportive, especially as women age in their fertility journey and outcomes. But this is also why a functional approach is so essential. We don't just want to treat the downstream effects of increased reactive oxygen species. We have to identify what is driving the oxidative stress in the first place. And that requires an in-depth history, lifestyle and environment assessment, labs, and maybe some advanced testing. Is it insulin resistance, environmental toxins, gut dysfunction, chronic infections, poor sleep, high stress, nutrient deficiencies? Often it's not just one thing, it's multiple contributors adding up over time, and we see that very commonly. Now, if you go to a doctor and they identify you have inflammation and they prescribe a steroid, this is common in fertility care. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's treating a symptom. It's treating the downstream effect. There's a reason inflammation and oxidative stress is happening. It's not random. So what I want to do is look upstream so we can actually correct the problem. At the end of the day, what I really want to do is look upstream so we can actually identify and address what's driving dysfunction in the first place. And that's going to lead to better outcomes and improved health. I hope this video helped you better understand how oxidative stress impacts egg and sperm quality and maybe helped you connect a few more dots when it comes to fertility in your body. If you found this helpful or interesting, make sure you subscribe because I'll be making more videos diving deeper into all of this, with a video coming soon on what causes oxidative stress and, most importantly, what can we do about it? And if you want to work with somebody who uses a functional approach, I'll leave my website in the caption. You can click there to see options for working with me. I usually start with in-depth labs so we can connect the dots and identify where your body needs support and what's driving dysfunction. And from there, we can create a strategic game plan. Thanks for watching.